Furniture needs to be secured or have safety features, like this dresser, which only allows you to open one drawer at a time, locking the others. That way kids can't pull out all of the drawers, which would make it more likely to tip over. Flexible seating means more than wobble chairs and ball seats. Teachers have the flexibility to create different areas in the classroom where kids can stand, sit, or lie down. At this home, 9 red pine trees went down in the storm, and check out this huge pile of branches and debris which keeps growing. But tonight, thanks to bus supporters, it's back on the agenda. All dams pose a risk to those nearby. Large ones like this one are clearly dangerous. But even a low-head dam like this one can create powerful undercurrents which can trap a person or boat. Now, this street has a lot of Halloween houses, but you can't miss Mary Hoffman's house. When you get to the ice, you should test it to see how thick it is. So we have this, which has a hook on it. We're gonna bring it down, and I can feel the ice. Here is a striking example of the damage high winds can do. Take a look at how this blacktop was completely ripped apart, and look at how deep these roots had been set. Now this 80-foot tall pine tree has a new home on the neighbor's house. In the summer, we spend a lot of time outdoors, but the same old routine can get a little boring. Here's a creative way to be the most fun family on the block. Make a backyard obstacle course. The best part is you can customize your course to whatever you already have. For our course, we're using our spruce trees, several pieces of wood, some balls and buckets, patio chairs, the sandbox, and the trampoline. First, the kids weave through the trees. Next, they hop over several pieces of wood. Then they take turns throwing balls into buckets. Now they'll crawl underneath these patio chairs. Next, it's on to the sandbox. The kids are tasked with finding a buried truck. Finally, they head over to the trampoline to jump. Don't have a backyard or much room at all? Make a mini course in your living room or head on over to a local park and get creative. For Moms Every Day, I'm Liz Hayes. Women are the fastest growing segment of the U.S. prison population. Many of them have dealt with sexual abuse and trauma, have mental illness and drug addiction, and are mothers.
If I didn't get incarcerated, I'd probably be dead, for sure. I would probably not have any contact with my kids if I didn't get incarcerated.
Jessie has spent the last 4.5 years behind bars at Tachita Correctional Institution, a maximum security state prison in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin.
I have a 16-year-old, her name's Jasmine. I have an 11-year-old, his name is Braden. And I have a 10-year-old named Destiny and a 7-year-old named Dayton. They can come up as much as they want, but it's hard because they're far away and my kids are always busy. So on the phone, you get only certain times out during the day in the building that I'm in. You only get, like, in the morning, you get time out and you can use the phone. But if it's not your day space during that time, you have to be outside. You can't use the phone. So it's limited. You can only call certain times, and if your parents or your children are busy, you don't get to talk to them because of times that you have to be out.
This is where we hang our pictures.
Tanya, a mother of 2 and heroin addict, is doing her second stint in prison. After her initial release, she relapsed, revoking her parole and sending her back here.
I have a 13-year-old Trinity and a 10-year-old Evan. When I did 6.5 years, I had my dad and my stepmom had my children. And then my dad passed away, so my son's father took him, and my daughter stayed with my stepmom. I came home, I transitioned, I lived in an efficiency apartment to a regular apartment to having supervised visits. And then I ended up with my children full time. My stepmom had passed away. I relapsed, and then I got revoked off my parole. So I came back for 2 years.
Tachita offers parenting groups to moms, but inmates lament that they're not enough to maintain strong connections with their kids while they're away.
We're so overpopulated, the group waiting lists are so long.
And they do have parenting from a distance from here, which I did take. And it showed videos from like the 60s. So it wasn't like up to date where it made me feel comfortable that, okay, yeah, I'm gonna be able to get out and I can do this. No, they need to teach us how to co-parent with whoever has your children. They need to teach us what we can do to be a better parent to our kids after being incarcerated for so long and not having that constant contact with them.
My daughter and I email back and forth, and then I talk to my kids at least twice a week on the phone. And then they come up here once a month to visit. But they deal with a lot of stuff they don't even tell me about. I find out after the fact. You know, I find out from my best friend or my son's father or my mother, because they are just angry about it.
Prison social worker Jamie Gear says a particularly unique program for mothers here are homestead visits. Some inmates qualify to have their children visit for an entire day.
We provide lunch, so they get to make the lunch together. They do arts and crafts. There's gym time where the kids get to go to the gym and kind of hang out, you know, with mom, play different games, things like that. There's books. There's, you know, all sorts of little things. It just makes it more comfortable. It's just such a comfortable setting, you know. And I know when they talked about the visiting room, it's a lot of people, and here it's individualized, you know. There's other kids that they can kind of play with, and then they have their moms, you know. They get to sit on the couch with them and read a book together, or they get to lay on the floor and play a board game together. So it's such a really neat opportunity for the ladies they have here.
While at this state prison there are programs designed to keep mothers bonded to their children, most incarcerated moms across the country aren't as fortunate.
The Dignity Act focuses on women who are incarcerated, and most Americans don't understand the massive amounts of women that we have incarcerated, increasing at a far more rapid pace right now than men. We actually have 1 out of every 3 incarcerated women on the planet Earth are right here in the United States of America, and they have particular concerns, challenges, and I think face a particular type of injustice when they're in prison. About 86% of the women that are incarcerated are survivors of sexual trauma. They're overwhelmingly parents. And we want to make sure through this bill that we are empowering women to succeed and not compounding a lot of the hurt and harm that's been done to them.
The Dignity for Incarcerated Women Act would make a series of reforms in the federal prison system to reduce the negative impact incarceration has on family members of women behind bars, particularly their children. It would do things like require the Bureau of Prisons to consider location of kids when placing moms and create better visitation policies. It would prohibit solitary confinement of pregnant women and make calls home free.
We see mothers in prison who really want to be great mothers. The prison system itself undermines their ability to be great moms. One doesn't take into consideration the visitation of their children, often locating them far away where visiting becomes difficult, if not impossible. It doesn't at all do anything to make those connections in prison more vibrant. It actually charges outrageous costs just to make phone calls for kids, limiting the amount of time. Sometimes a parent's children are spread out through a number of different places, so they have to call 3 different locations, 2 different locations, depending on how many kids they have.
For Jesse and Tanya, the lack of control they have from the inside makes the thought of transitioning home a terrifying one. And they both want more support once they step into freedom.
I made the choices I made, and it led me to where I am. It sucks because I see so many people that I was in here with that have come back. You know, and I think that's a big thing with the women's prison too, is the recidivism rate, the relapses, you know. And a lot of us here in Wisconsin aren't on new cases. We're, you know, just getting revoked and we come back. When you get out, you go from being locked down and having somebody dictate when you eat, when you sleep, to you're on your own.
I'm so scared because on visits, my kids will say to me, well, we don't have to listen to you. Yeah, I'm still your mom. You do have to listen to me. Just because I've been gone, it doesn't mean you don't have to listen to me anymore. I understand that you've been with, you know, Gaga and Papa, that's what they call them, for almost 5 years. but I'm still your mom. You still have to listen to me when I tell you something. That's the biggest problem I have. I'm so worried about it. My kids are not going to want to be with me. They're not going to want to listen to me. They're like, well, we don't live with you. You can't tell us what to do. But I don't know how to make that transition yet. I'm very nervous about it.
Well, this is what I don't understand about our society. The Dignity Act does a lot to try to empower people when they're in prison to not recidivate and give them the tools, the equipment, the mental health care and more to help them be successful and successful parents. But I just don't understand this about societies. We have evidence-based models that when women come out, to help those women to continue to get counseling, parental support, job support, that dramatically lower recidivism rates, dramatically lower taxpayer expenditures, dramatically lower crime. It's like every dollar you invest, you get multiples in returns and savings to taxpayers, but we don't do it. It just makes no sense to me that we have evidence-based models that work, that empower people, that heal people, that help people, that we just don't do it.
I miss them every day. I wish I didn't have to be away from them, but if I didn't get better, I was gonna be dead. Then they wouldn't have a mom anyway. And I try to tell them that, like, this was good for me. Like, I had to be sober for a long time, otherwise I would have just kept using drugs, and my oldest understands it. She doesn't like it. She's like, you chose drugs over us. I said, yeah, I did. I said, it controlled my life, and I'm sorry. But I wouldn't be here today if I didn't come. I wouldn't. They'd be coming to visit me in a cemetery. So it's really hard.
It hurts a lot. I can't express to them how sorry I am for the choices I've made. I can't express how I hope they learn from my experience about it. You know, I've been open and honest with them about everything. They know I'm an addict. They know. I felt it was safer to be honest with them than hide it from them, because maybe it'll help them so they don't end up where I'm at or end up down the road that I went down.
You don't know people's situation unless you talk to them one-on-one, or they want to tell you about it. It's not fair that kids get penalized for this or get blamed for this, or because it's not right. And people should not look at kids any different because their parents are incarcerated, because it's not their fault. Kids shouldn't get picked on because, oh, your mom is in jail, your mom is in prison, your dad is gone too, they don't love you. That's something my kids have had to deal with. And it's not fair. It's not right either, because they didn't do anything. They're innocent. They're just kids.
Many states are pushing through their own versions of the Dignity Act. Senator Booker says the U.S. does not have to be the incarceration nation of the earth, and that it should be a priority to nurture the bond between mother and child, even if that mother is locked away. For Moms Every Day, I'm Liz Hayes. St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City is known as one of the holiest Christian sites in the world, where Peter, one of the 12 apostles, is said to be buried. Millions travel to Rome each year just to take in the breathtaking views and rich Renaissance art. But behind the Catholic holy ground lies a dark scandal, that of sexual abuse of minors among clergy. This past weekend, cardinals met at the Vatican for the creation of 24 new cardinals, including Raymond Cardinal Burke, who grew up in Stratford, Wisconsin. The joining of cardinals made for an opportunity to discuss some of the issues facing the church today. The Pope ordered a day of prayer, and the cardinals were asked to reflect on a number of things, including religious freedom in the world. But it's the sexual abuse of minors that continues to capture the most attention. During the consistory of cardinals, the Vatican announced it was preparing a new set of guidelines to help bishops offer a coordinated and efficient response to sexual abuse. Exact guidelines have not yet been publicized.
I believe that in our nation, the measures are in place to prevent this from happening. Not that it couldn't if people are not vigilant. And so the important thing, I think, is that bishops especially and and priests be very vigilant against any priest who might show signs of this kind of really criminal activity.
Cardinal Burke says the heinous acts of some priests doesn't prevent the church from being the body of Christ. As for the victims of sexual abuse, the church has work to do.
We can never do enough for the victims. For my own part, and I know this is true of a lot of priests and bishops, we tried to remain in communication with them, tried to accompany them to a certain degree of healing. You never fully get over such an experience, but if one can permit our Lord to touch his soul, then there is a healing that comes.
Unfortunately, many abused individuals do not go back to the church precisely because of the pain caused there. Sexual abuse is not the only issue the Catholic Church faces in this day and age.
It's simply tougher today. You have many more people who, for whatever reason, have grown up without a strong faith, and so they tend to resist what the church is saying.
The challenge, he says, is to find ways of speaking to people's hearts. In Vatican City, Liz Hayes, News Channel 7. Wednesday's public hearing on Assembly Bill 426, which aims to change the state's mining regulations, was crowded. Several hundred packed the Hurley Inn, and more than 150 signed up to testify in front of the Committee on Jobs, Economy, and Small Business.
I think this is a phenomenal turnout. I think this really shows that there's a lot of people that are in good support of it. There are some that aren't in support of it, and everybody's entitled to opinion.
The legislation was written by state Republicans and influenced by Gogebic Taconite of Hurley, the company that wants to mine iron in the area. It relaxes environmental standards having to do with wetlands, groundwater, and rock disposal. Also in the bill is a requirement for the DNR to speed up its permit review process to under 360 days. And it eliminates the public's ability to challenge a DNR decision through a hearing process. Behind me is the site of the proposed iron mine. GTAC hopes to mine between 7 and 8 million tons of iron pellets annually. It's nestled between Ashland and Iron counties along the Pinocchio Range. Those in favor of the mine say will bring much-needed jobs and revitalize the North Woods.
I think overall it would be a good thing for everybody in the area because it's going to affect everybody for many years, and it's a ball that rolls downhill.
But opponents say the bill rolls back environmental protections, maximizes profit for one company, GTAC, and gives the DNR less time to assure a safe process.
That permitting process is a filter. That filter is there to protect all Wisconsinites. It's ultimately there to protect all tribes, so that when a mining application goes in, it doesn't automatically come out.
In Hurley, Liz Hayes, News Channel 7.
I have dealt with addiction of one of my sons for 10 years, heavily 8 years, and have gone through the ups and the downs, the relapses, the multiple, recoveries, multiple relapses, multiple rehabs, and so I've lived it. It was opiates, and due to a surgery, multiple surgeries, and from there it went from prescription drugs, it went to heroin as well. Physicians have got to be aware that you cannot prescribe more than what is needed, and they truly need to be aware of, the addiction potential of these drugs are just astronomical.
We met a number of years ago now at one of our evening sessions that we put on just to raise awareness, and it was probably 2013, if not even earlier than that. And at that point, it was early on, in her son's recovery. And I think that's when I talk to parents, it's one of those all too frequent stories of not knowing what to do, not knowing what's going to happen from day to day. And I think that, that struggle is real, and it is something that's managed every day.
It's a constant state of chaos and grieving and fear. Fear of you don't know what to expect. A lot of families feel that, it's something that lacks in your upbringing, and it's not. It's not at all. You very slowly fall into this pit of addiction, and it's really hard to find your way out.
These are our family members, these are our spouses, these are our friends, these are our neighbors. I think that when it comes to addiction recovery, we need to focus on that. I think one of the things that's important is positive social supports, not only for individuals that are in recovery, but their families and their loved ones as well, because if we can build those positive supports, that feeling of being alone or that hopelessness really does go away. So I think that's one of the most important things. So when people contact me, I try to link them to other individuals, other families that have gone through similar circumstance. And as much as I can, I always include that as part of the awareness that we do, because it does impact more than just the individual that's using it. I think a lot of people forget that.
I read a lot. I go to seminars. I really feel that information is power. And I think sharing, a lot. Sharing with family, with those you trust.
I think one of the things that I've noticed in our community is over the last 3 years is that people are more willing to build that community supportive of recovery. So they are looking at things like sober living facilities. They are looking at things like transitional work sites. They're looking at things like recovery coaching, which is really a peer-to-peer model. There's all these things that we need to do, because you can't, 21 days, 28 days is not enough.
It is an illness, and it has to be managed, just as if it was, diabetes or heart disease. It must be managed, and as long as you're aware of that, and you want sobriety, you want freedom, you want life, it can be.